Welcome to the One Hand at a Time podcast. I'm your host, Chris Welton, and I have a really cool guest today. And the first thing I'll say is we did this about a month ago or maybe 6 weeks ago for 51 solid minutes of recording. And unfortunately, the microphones didn't work. So we're going to start off there again. I have a complete stud on with me today. The dude is just a dominant force in the mortgage industry. We met, and I'll tell you how we met at an event like I have with so many people in my life. But then he's also a CrossFit athlete who's going through some adversity right now. We're going to go deep on that today because it's been amazing on what I've seen him accomplish over the last 30. I think today's day 31, right? So I want to welcome my friend, Will Gomez, to the One Hand at a Time podcast.
Chris, thank you so much for having me. Again, even if, the last time didn't work out, I'm a big believer that everything happens for a reason. So whether it's, an injury or whatever it happens. And one of the things that I always think about kind of a little bit to do with kind of like the thing that happened with us, that we already did this one, it didn't work out. And it's like, man, I don't shy away on asking me any questions that you asked me the first time, just because the thing that makes me think of is so many people that are into books and reading books and self-help and stuff. They never go back and read the same book again. Right. And if you don't do that, then you're never going to get the most out of it. So if anything, really, I'm super excited to kind of relive that conversation because it was such a great conversation that we had a lot of great questions. And yeah, man, I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you've got the right guy for that because I'm the highlight guy. I go back, reread books and highlight them. And I keep, if you could see my office right now, there's stacks of books everywhere. And if I fall into okay, I'm having some adversity in this part of my life, or my friend is, I'm going to go grab one of these books off the shelf that I've read and go back to work with it. So it's all about it. So let's just jump in right now with, first of all, how we met. I had our friend Brian Covey on yesterday and recorded with him. And for those of you who are first time listeners and haven't heard me really talk about Rene Rodriguez, we'll get into that super fast here. But I had an event I went to, Amplify, down in South Florida, and it's a super intimate event with like 10 people and Renee, and Will happened to be one of the people in the room. And we just headed off right away, had some great conversations from the start there. And the cool thing about it is you learn about people super fast, right? They get up at the front, the people who want to be there, and they're very vulnerable and tell and share their stories. So I was super vulnerable with my story. Will was with his. And I think that's probably what we bonded over at first, is just that we were very transparent in the beginning of who we really were. So, Will, let's talk about Amplify real quick. I know that you're a 2-time attendee, and so am I now. How did that change for you from the first time to the second time you went to Amplify?
From the first time to the second time was that the first time it was very emotional for me, because I can't tell you the last time that I had honestly cried before I had gone to the Amplify. I'm not a person that I feel like I show my emotions somewhat well. Like people can normally tell if I'm, happy, angry, sad, whatever. But as far as like really, really touching into, one of the things that they talk about all the time is speaking from the heart. And I think that once you really go through and really try to speak from your heart, and then also relive memories that you've had in your brain for, ever since you were a kid. It's stuff that we kind of just not talk, we push away and we don't want to talk about it. But I think I shared with you this last time that the second time that I went, not only was a more refined process of like, I was able to share my story by being able to connect with the crowd as far as them seeing me as a human, not this persona that whatever people first think of, the frame that they put on you whenever they first meet you, just like everybody did the first time along with the second time, just because they didn't know who I was. And not only that, but like I said, last time I believe I shared with you, I really went into depth with one of the things that Renee talks about is amor fati, which is like I believe said like a Latin term for pretty much like the love of life. Like you can't truly say that you love life unless you are fully really in love with everything that's happened in your life, which, you know, I don't know if there's anyone in the world that has been in this life that just hasn't gone through hard times. And of course, hard times for you are different that are hard times for me that are for anybody else. You know, one of the things that I remember hearing was that you know, if you have somebody here in the United States, like a kid that's grown up, everything's been given to him, and he gets a BMW at 16, and then somebody dings that BMW, like that's like devastating for him. And but for most people, they would look at that and they're like, you know, what a privileged rich kid that he doesn't really know what life's about. He's never really had to suffer, because you have also another 16-year-old across the country, or across the country, or let's say across the world, that, you know, hasn't lived a day where they have felt full in their stomach because they've had enough to eat that day. And that's the hardest thing that they've ever done. And it's hard to wrap your brain around this, but both of those people are going through the same exact thing, because that's the worst pain that they've ever experienced. So whether it is something as sad and crazy as like you not, you know, you fighting for food and not being able to be fed every single day, or getting a ding on your brand new BMW, like you have to be in love with that part of your life in order to fully say, hey, I love my life and I love life. And I think that before the first time, I wasn't in love with that part of my story. Like I didn't want anybody to know that.
Mhm.
Now, like I just taught a realtor class, social media class, dude. The frame was my story of whenever my, you know, my mom couldn't even afford to give us a piece of pizza for all four of us, me, my brother and sister, and my mom. And then the message was, you know, my why behind of why I enjoyed doing, one, you know, loans, but two, social media. And the tie down was really tying it together and saying, you know, the market has been pretty easy the last couple of years, whether you've been a realtor or a lender. If you're wanting to survive in this market, you're going to have to do things that you didn't want to do, which was like my mom leaving us for 2.5 years in Mexico to be able to provide us a better life. You're going to have to know your why, of truly why you're doing this, not just to get a paycheck, but why are you helping people buy homes? Why are you creating content on social media? Like, what's the why behind that? And then three, it doesn't matter how good looking you are, how long you've been in the business, even how hardworking you are. It matters how adaptable you are. And you have to be able to adapt to this market if you're wanting to succeed. So that's really, between the first time and the second time, I mean, it was a game changer for me, man.
Yeah, I tell you, the second time for me, I went in there with full intention to get better at a speaking event that I was going to be speaking at and presenting a few weeks later. So, but it was amazing to sit back and watch everyone in the room go through the stuff that you and I went through the first time, right? Like we kind of knew,
Yeah.
but also it had adapted tremendously, right? We were like, Renee adapts the class as he goes. Like really, it's like it was a different type of teaching than it was the prior year. I want everybody to really understand that how powerful your story is for you to present yourself and be real in any market. When we're talking about the mortgage business, obviously that's what a lot of our listeners are in this space, in real estate or any type of sales. But Will has embraced his story. He said he was afraid to tell that in the beginning. And now he's using that as a strength to build relationships. And I do the same thing. Like, I'm not afraid to share my story or tell it anymore. And it's drawn me closer and built stronger relationships, even with people I've been in relationships for a very long time, 20, 30 years. Have you noticed the same thing with people you were close to, that now you're sharing stuff maybe you didn't share before, and it's like building a deeper relationship?
Absolutely. Great example for that is just even my right hand guy right now. That's kind of like the team captain of my team. You know, us as salespeople, we're good at one thing, but maybe not so great at other things, right? To where like he's kind of like my ops guy, and I'm like the sales guy. And I've known this guy since we were 15 years old. We, you know, started. I got to know him in my sophomore year of high school, and you know, I've known him since then. This job that we are at is our like fifth job together. We, you know, not only we grew up together, we went to school together, and then we've been working together. And we went to Amplify. It's funny, I went to both Amplifies exactly a year apart. January 22nd of 2021 is whenever I met you. Excuse me, 22. January, and that was in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. January 22nd of 2023 was in Las Vegas, and it was literally to the date. And so whenever I came back, I had my top five realtor dinner every year. We pick our top five realtors that, have the most volume, that have sent over to our team. I take them out to the fancy dinner, and I'm able to just pour into them and just show my appreciation that, like, without them, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And I shared, I wanted to get vulnerable because, of course, these are people that know me, but not even to a level of a personal level, let's say, that some relationships, do have, as far as like a lender and realtor relationship. Like, I've kind of always been a little bit cautious on making sure that my relationship with like an agent doesn't get too close, just because of, like, I've seen those relationships from afar that they're just like, but even a co-working relationship, like, if I've had to tell you the amount of people that have told me, hey, working with your best friend might not be the best deal. I mean, you grow up hearing it, like, it's not a good idea to hire family or friends, right? That night I shared a little bit of my story. We were at the 32nd floor of this like penthouse restaurant, and Jordan and I, when we were like in college, I used to love like climbing like buildings and seeing views and everything. And I shared of how, like, I can't believe that we pretty much graduated from climbing buildings and sometimes getting in trouble to being at this place in my life and getting it to share with my best friend. And I can't believe that kid in Mexico could even, his whole family couldn't afford one piece of pizza, like that. This is my life, right? And that right there, proves that it can work if it's the right relationship, as far as building a deeper connection with your realtor partners, with hiring your best friend. But then also, to answer your question, it's like, yeah, I mean, it took not just only the five realtors that were there that, I was close to a further like level, but even Jordan. I remember he sent me a text message and he goes, dude, I can't believe I never knew that about you, about, like, I've known you for over 10 years now, and I never knew that's how hard it was for you in Mexico. And I didn't know that you even thought about, like, the times we used to climb buildings and this and that, like how you put those two things together. Like, it's crazy. Like, I feel like I know a new William, like literally what he told me. And that's just one example of many people, including even my wife, that, like, I've been able to open up a little more and be a little bit more human like, to say the least. So
Yeah, I think it's incredibly powerful for me to be able to, it was the same, right? So I work with my best friend, we've been friends over 40 years. And when I was prepping to go speak at the real estate summit in Charleston, South Carolina in November, I had him sit in the room, in our conference room, and I went through my whole speech, my whole presentation. And he said, I knew some of those things, but some of the stuff I didn't know. And man, it's like crazy. So here we are, we have our stories, we've made them public, right? Because that's the only way to be truly transparent with who we are and why we're trying to do what we're trying to do. So I want to go from there, Will, and let's talk about the responsibility. Do you feel a responsibility to be what Ed Milet would call the one, right? The one. And what I mean by that is, you're the one who's going to change the trajectory of your family heritage right now. As you guys came to the US, do you feel that's on your shoulders to be that one that takes it to the next level, to build something bigger for the Gomez family?
yeah, I mean, I think that pressure has been all the way back since I was like 5 years old, and my mom told me that she had to come to the United States and get a better opportunity in order to push our family forward. And even though we were staying with my aunt and uncle, and I was without her for 2.5 years, I knew that I was responsible for taking care of my brother and my sister. I have a little brother and a little sister. I think even then, all throughout my life, I've been told that, I can't believe I got in the business when I was 23 years old, and people couldn't believe it. They're just like, you just seem like you're a lot more mature for your age. And it all goes back to that one moment that I had to mature at a really young age, 5 years old, to really be able to push forward what I knew needed to be done. And with that, along with 2.5 years later, landing here, whenever my mom finally, brought us over, essentially it was supposed to be 6 months, and then it ended up being 2.5 years, because she said, I think it's better if I save up enough money to be able to bring you guys here and have a better opportunity. And now to this day, it's crazy. My mom will still text me every now and then, like a couple times a year, and just say like, man, I still feel so bad that I couldn't give you guys like everything that I wanted. And I have to like snap her out of it, because I tell her like, what do you mean? Like you've given me the biggest opportunity. Like you've brought me to the US, and there's so much opportunity here. Like I wouldn't be able to do like 95% of the things that I've been able to accomplish if I wouldn't have had the opportunity to come here. So I take those opportunities that have been thrown at me very, very serious, because I don't want to ever feel that I've wasted that opportunity that my mom gave to me by bringing me here. And along with that comes with, I've been the oldest in my family. I grew up without a dad. So I've always known that I've had to, lead by example. So yeah, I think even before I heard Ed Milet say that, I mean, it resonated with me. And I really took more ownership of that, just because I knew that I was the one, really. I mean, my siblings have, been able to take advantage of their opportunities as well. But I feel like there's that responsibility on my end, that like, I'm the one that's supposed to still keep, leading the family. So
Yeah, and I was thinking about that this morning. I was as I knew we were going to talk today, I'm like, that's a question I definitely want an answer from when I talked to Will, because we personally have never had that conversation. We've had several conversations, but we haven't had that one. And so I want to go a little more deeper with when you came to the US. So you were 5, right?
mm-hmm.
And how old was your brother?
He was at that point. No. Whenever I came to the US, I was like 8.5.
8.5.
And then my
Okay.
sister was my sister was around 6 years old. And then my brother was like 3.5 or so.
So were you able just to catch a flight and come to the US, or like, how did that work there? How did you get to your aunt's house?
No, man. So it was, this is something too that it's very, very personal to me. That this is one of the other things that, going back to Amplify, it was kind of like a similar experience that I had the first time, but with this, I mean, I kind of shared it a little bit the first time that I was there. It was all like, I was probably, like I said, about 8.5. And so I didn't really know really ton of what was going on. All I knew is that my mom had saved enough money to bring us over here. And so did my aunt and uncle's kids, because that's who my mom came here with.
Okay.
And so they saved up enough money to bring their aunt and uncle here, or their parents here. So we were all going to travel together. So I was, born in a really small town called Jalapa, Veracruz, which is like really south of Mexico by the East Coast. And so we had to drive from there to Mexico City. It was a really long drive to get there. And this whole time I'm just like excited to see my mom. And we get there, and we from there got on a plane. And I'm thinking like, I'm getting on this plane and then I am going to go see my mom. Well, we got on this plane, and then we ended up actually going to Ciudad Juarez, which is like right across the border from El Paso, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, I didn't even know where I was at. Now I know that, knowing that I'm older and stuff. But I didn't realize that the money that my mom had saved was to pretty much, all the travel there, but also to pay somebody really to pretty much like sneak us over into the country. Because, like I shared with you guys, the first Amplify is that I'm actually currently still under like the DACA protection that
Mm-hmm.
Obama put in like a few years back. And it's crazy, because that's one thing that has been super, super hard for me to talk about, just because I grew up in a town where there wasn't very many Hispanic people. And so, as you're growing up in middle school and high school and stuff, and you just kind of want to fit in, right? And man, one of the toughest times of whenever I was growing up is whenever, we were in high school and we were trying to fill out forms to what college you were going to go to and everything. And one of my biggest stoppers is that I didn't have a social security number. And it was like obvious of like, there was something different about me, but I never once wanted to share any of that to anybody. If it wouldn't have been for Amplify, like I wouldn't even be talking about this with you right now,
Yeah.
honestly. Just because it's been super tough to be that vulnerable and just view myself as like an outsider pretty much. I mean, heck, I grew up. One of the things that people tell me whenever they meet me is that they can't even tell that I have an accent, as that they tell me that there's no way that I was born in Mexico. Like I was born here and everything. And
That's because you live in Tulsa and they speak a different language in Tulsa, in different English.
yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, that's really kind of how that happened. And it was one of it's some of the worst memories, but some of the best ones that I've had, just because of what it brought to my life. Talking about Ed Milet, one of the things that he talks about too is that no matter what adversity he is going through, he understands that he's gonna enjoy meeting the person on the other side, his same self on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was literal. Like I said, as hard as this is, like I'm gonna love the William that's gonna be on that side of the border, which is going to be with my mom. And at that point, I was too young to understand the opportunities that it was truly going to open up and everything. But yeah.
Well, I got to say, Will, that first of all, I can only imagine the weight off your shoulders and being able to share those stories now, instead of it not being the popular thing to share or being concerned. I know you and I had some conversations, and I believe you spoke about the DACA thing, about someone said, "Oh, well, you're not DACA, are you?" or whatever. And we talked about that briefly, but I want to say that, and I don't know if I guess it's my podcast, so it doesn't matter if it comes across the wrong way or not, but I don't mean it to be the wrong way by any means, but I have several people that have worked for me in my career, and I call it the immigrant mindset. Like most of the people that have worked for me that have immigrated from other countries have been absolute beasts. Like they work their ass off and they take it and they run with it. So I applaud you for that. And I can't wait to see where you go from there with it, because I think that your story right now resonates with so many people that are maybe afraid to share some of that in the current climate with whatever's going on and everything else. Dude, you're exactly what America's built on, is people getting here and working their ass off to do something better for their family. So, dude, not that I didn't love you before, bro, but I've got even more love for you now that I hear more of the story that I didn't necessarily hear previous. So let's transition from that, because I think that that's just Will Gomez is a badass, and we're going to go into more of some other stuff here. First of all, we've got a little Gomez on the way, right?
Yeah.
Like we're right around the corner. So is the cast going to be off before the baby's born?
It should be. So, as you kind of mentioned in the introduction, and it's crazy how you know the exact date. There's literally 31 days from when I had my surgery, 33 days from whenever I had an injury. Saturday morning, the Saturday before the Super Bowl, I went out and I was actually getting prepared to run a marathon in April, and I went and ran 5 miles, and then after I ran 5 miles, I went to CrossFit, and part of the workout was doing box jumps. And so I was doing rebounding box jumps, and I stepped off, or came off the box, and then I felt like I kind of like landed on a dumbbell with a mixture of somebody kicking me in the back of the leg. And I looked back and there was nobody there. And I was like, okay, like what the heck was that? With the mixture of a pop, like something felt like a pop, but like I don't know if I registered at the time. And then I was like, okay, I guess it was nothing. And then as I'm standing to go jump back again, the ground felt like really uneven. And I looked down and I was like, is there a hole in the ground? Like it was crazy. And then that's whenever I think I registered that that something was wrong. And so I, had a severe tear of my Achilles. Like I think the doctor said there was about 4 centimeters. Thankfully I was able to get surgery within, less than 48 hours and everything. So it was February 6th that I had my surgery. I had a splint for 3 weeks. Now I have a cast, and I'll have it for 2 more weeks. And then hopefully they'll put me in a boot. And I'm really hoping that they'll put me on physical therapy, like give me the green light to do whatever. So that way I can be mobile and repay, my wife, what she's been able to do for me this last month for sure.
Yeah, so she's very pregnant, and and she's got a husband with a bad wheel, right?
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
and the only reason I knew the date, Will, is because I'm looking at Instagram, and I see this guy with a cast on doing a CrossFit workout, and I'm like, what is Will doing? Like, and guys, I'm not talking about like going to the gym and putting up a bench press. This guy's swinging on the bars and stuff, and I'm like, what is happening? So what are you doing, dude? Like what? I mean, trust me, I was in a boot for almost a year, and I love to train and work out, and it was mentally really tough because I couldn't do it. I tore my plantar fascia, which when you're a guy my size, due to foot injury, doesn't heal fast, but took 10
Yeah,
months. But you're
man.
not just working out, you did a complete CrossFit workout. What can you tell me where your head is? Like, what are you thinking?
Yeah. So, you know, as we know, over the last couple of years, whenever this thing called COVID kind of hit us, and we all had to be in our homes and not go anywhere. Like this has kind of been COVID 2.0 for me, just because it's hard for me. I'll tell you, I haven't ordered as much Grubhub or DoorDash or whatever in the last few years, let alone this last month, just because it's even hard to go and pick up food and stuff. One of the things that COVID brought along with being stuck at home is being stuck at home with your own thoughts, right? And what did it do? It surged up depression and all suicide and all these different things. And of course, I don't know if I told you this before, but me and another girl in the office were the only ones going into the office whenever COVID was a thing. Everybody was working from home, and I hate working from home. And I still had to get up, shower, and have a routine, go to the office. The only other reason why the other girl was going is because she didn't have Wi-Fi. She's like one of those people that's very like frugal and wants to save all her money. And she's like, why do I need Wi-Fi at home whenever I can just, have it here? I was going there because I just needed to get out of the house. I was being responsible with it because of course, like I wasn't around people, but that's one of the biggest thing that, I'm super thankful that I would say that I feel that I have like a somewhat addictive personality. Thankfully, it doesn't show on some things, more like, let's say, alcohol or even like one of the biggest things that I was scared about was they gave me hydrocodone, and we have a big problem with opioids and stuff. And then also, like, I didn't actually start drinking until I was about 23 because I grew up and seeing my uncles like really struggling with drinking and stuff. So I'm so glad that I've always been able to cope with the stress that this job has by being able to like go work out and not have to be on my phone and just suffer through a workout that I know that if I can get through this workout, like everything else is going to be easy for me. Right. But not only does it help me cope with stress, but it really helps me balance, like keep a healthy mental health. So one of the things that I've really enjoyed about being able to work from home is that we've gotten busier, and I've been able to just hone in and just be on my computer and been able to work out, do all these things that it's taken my mind away from the injury. But then of course work brings its own stress of its own. And then I'm still needing to, want to make sure that I have some balance in my head. And so, along with also like being really afraid that I'm like, well, I don't want this injury to like make me gain a bunch of weight and stuff. So And
Because
then also,
if you've ever seen Will likes to eat, dude. Like my man likes to
yeah,
like he's a guy like me. We love to eat. Now Will's way fitter than I am, but Will, if you see his posts on Instagram, the dude's got some, and he throws down. He doesn't eat small portions, so I can see what you're saying for sure.
yeah, and I mean one of my biggest loves is brunch, and I still haven't yet to make it to brunch once, but I was able to yesterday was my first RX workout, which is means like it's prescribed, it's what everybody else like, so I didn't have to modify it. And that was one of the things that whenever I got injured, I walked out of there and I was thinking like, I wonder how long it'll take me to come back. And it's always about the comeback, right? Like people love the journey of the fallen hero or whatever that's called. Like people love seeing somebody kind of make a comeback, and there's no one that wants to see a better comeback of me than myself. And so with precaution, I don't know if you were talking about the pull-ups that I was doing. I had my leg bent to make sure that I wasn't like swinging that actual leg,
Yeah,
even though it
whatever.
was,
Well, I saw him, dude.
yeah,
You were still doing pull-ups with a cast on. You like,
yeah,
yeah, I know they weren't all acrobatic like you usually do, like you're trying to make the Olympic team. I get it, but and I totally understand that, and people that work out and train understand that too. Like I've got to get my workouts in to be able to be the best version of myself mentally. And in the industry you're in now, the mortgage industry right now, we're feeling some kind of turbulence. It was really weird. We thought we were out of the crazy rates, and then all of a sudden, beginning of February, it just hit us like a ton of bricks all over again. So we're dealing with a ton of adversity there. And you talked about liking the person you become on the other side of adversity. And I love that. It's Ed Milet talks about that. That's one of my favorite things I talk about all the time. Actually, I was chatting with Ben Newen today, and I were talking about who we become on the other side of adversity. And so, but I want to second that is a lot of people they might like who they become on the other side of adversity, but then they get comfortable with who that person is. And see, you're not one of those people, and neither am I. I'm never comfortable with who I've become. I want to be a better version of myself. So I get strength from watching you do certain things, like going back out there and getting after it. Because my biggest fear when I saw you were hurt was, dude, I hope Will doesn't get too blue and down on himself now, because I know how much you count on those workouts and everything. And I saw you do that 5-mile run, and I saw you. I'm like, what are you 5-mile run and then CrossFit? Okay, dude, I know you're going to be back at it 100%, and there's no worries there, man. And you just always have a smile on your face. So I truly appreciate that about you. So let's go into Will Gomez, the influencer, because that's kind of what you've become here. And it was funny. There was a picture of you and I posted when we recorded the first time, and a buddy of mine reached out and goes, "Hey, how do you know Will Gomez?" I'm like, "Oh man, that's my boy." No, I said, "I've known Will for a while. We met at a conference, at an event." And he's like, "Oh, I've seen his stuff." And I'm like, and we went it from there. But you've got some pretty substantial amount of followers on Instagram, like 40,000+, I believe. Do you have more followers on TikTok than you do Instagram?
no. So it's about to be a year since I started on my personal brand. So I didn't even have a personal brand when you and I met a year and a couple months ago. I've had my Instagram since 2012. So I've had this Instagram page for coming on 11 years. So I had less than 1,100 followers. I knew that my business needed this. It's funny, they kind of mirror each other, my mortgage career and my personal brand, journey. Because whenever I got in the business, I remember thinking to myself, like, this year there's a chance that I might make zero like money because it's a full commission, but there's potential to just double what I made last year or more. Which one is it most likely to happen if I'm not alert and focused? The first one. Like, there's a chance that if I'm not fully focused, fully all in, work hard, and adapt to everything that's being thrown at me, I might make $0 this year. So did the same thing last year. I said, man, I have like 1,000 followers, and I was proud of those 1,000 followers. I was just like, in 9 years at this point, like I've grown it to 1,000 followers. Of course, this is me showing people like what I'm doing. I'm at a conference, I'm traveling, this or that, whatever, right? Just like everybody else is. So I figured like people that are following me aren't following me for mortgage advice or real estate education. So there's a chance that people are going to start unfollowing me because they don't want to hear that. So I gave myself a year. I want to do this a year. I'm going to be consistent. and I'm not going to let up. Even if I drop down in 3 months, I'm down to 200 followers. So I actually expected to lose followers by doing this because I knew that this wasn't going to be for everybody. I just saw the blueprint and followed it, and started posting, and I grew that within, I think it was like less than 6 months. I got my first 10,000, and then it went pretty slow from like the 1,000 to the 5,000 mark, and then pretty quickly to the 10,000. And I remember I had just got done riding, you know, my bike, and I got back and I was like, I finally hit 10,000. And that same Monday, but you talk about how like we, people like you and I and people that we surround ourselves with, we don't like, we're not going to get complacent, but it's a double-edged sword, right? Because it's like that satisfied in you. You're like, okay, like that satisfied in me was as soon as I hit 10K, just when I thought that was going to make me happy, I was like, okay, how long until I hit 15K, right? So that same sword kind of stabbed me and took the joy because of comparison. And that Monday I hit 15K, and then it kind of just blew up from there. I'm like 41 or something thousand on Instagram. I had started a TikTok account, and that's up to, I believe, 7,000. But the unique one was Facebook. I started posting on my personal page as reels, and within like a month, they asked me to change it to a creator account. So it wasn't my business page; it was like my personal page. They asked me to change it to a creator, and to this day, I have like 55,000 followers there, which are different than friends. I have like 5,000 friends and 55,000 followers. That started from zero because I didn't have any followers whenever I started as a creator. And not only that, but a couple months later, they started paying me. And right now I'm probably getting like, $1,800 average probably from Meta, just because I'm posting content that's keeping people in the platform. With all that being said, I mean, I think that it took a lot of work to get to where I'm at with that, with consistency and making time for it, and staying accountable to the things that I'm telling myself, and keeping up to date as well too, because social media is a little bit like our guideline book when it comes to doing alone. Like, guidelines are changing all the time, algorithm is changing all the time, and it's been a big reason of why my business has stayed successful for today's terms, as far as like the huge hit that we took last year.
Obviously, being able to stay consistent, you're not afraid to invest in yourself. I know you went to Forward, right? You spent some time with Neil, who's kind of like the Yoda of social media. I mean, everybody I know that's gone there has blown it up. I just haven't had the time yet to figure out a way to get there. So
yeah, and not once, but I went twice, by the way.
You went twice. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that people don't realize. People always think of like, how is this? I mean, literally Neil himself sent me a screenshot text of somebody that asked him, sent him a picture of my profile, and then literally said word for word, like, how did this guy blow up overnight? And he texted it to me, and he said, people don't ever see the back, like the behind the scenes that goes into it.
Yeah. It's like Renee says he's a 25-year overnight success or something along those lines. Yeah. Right. So let's talk about, obviously you can make some money from reels and from social media stuff, but we talked about this the last time, the importance of having a massive following like that when you're trying to build your mortgage business or get into relationships with other top producers. So it's literally like a virtual resume that you're walking around with. So I know that you don't carry a business card, right? So let's kind of go into what you do when you do meet up with people to get them to follow you back and get their information.
So 3 things that I've done different now that I've built up that platform, but even before then, and I feel like this was part of my growth, because just because you have 40,000 followers or 400 followers, if you have good content, you have good content. Like, who cares? Like, sure, like the part of it that you don't have a massive following, it's going to be like a part of the credibility. But if you have like good looking content that you're that you show confidence, you know what you're talking about, at the end of the day, you're still reaching people. Because here's the thing, if I did a class for 11 realtors that I did not know that I was invited to go and speak at this thing today. And I say, it's honestly harder for me to teach these classes now, because you guys could probably say, sure, you've reached almost 4 million people the last 90 days on Instagram, but you have 40,000 followers. I have 200, right? The crazy thing is that, like, when I had like 2,000 or less than 2,000 people, like, I reached my first million people in 3 months time when I had 2,000 followers. So you're reaching people that aren't following you there. And what literally pushes me to keep creating content is I'm getting, once again, whether you have 2,000 followers or 200,000 followers, you are getting to impact people and influence people that you'll never get to meet. That used to never be a thing before social media. Before, it was like celebrities got to influence people, athletes got to influence people. We have the power to influence people in a positive way at the palm of our hands. So those three things I was telling you about, even before I blew up, one thing is, if I'm talking to you and the conversation is going great, I say, hey, what's your handle? And here's the thing, be ready that, one, like, probably half of those people or more, like 5 or 6 people out of 10 will not know what a handle is. They're like, what does that mean? Like, no, what's your Instagram name? And then they're like, I don't know. And then at that point, then if I trade contacts with somebody, I'm sending them my contact card, but then I'm sending them a separate link to my Instagram. So even if they don't have an Instagram, they can click on it and it takes them to them. And like you said, that is your resume there. The other thing is that I have been, as I'm talking to clients and as we're sending needs lists, I am sending them I'm sending a link to my social media, and I say, hey, I don't even say social media. I say, hey, Chris, I'm going to send you a link to my website. I post a lot of short form real estate educational content. It's less than 30 seconds of video. So if you go to that page, you'll be able to see, what the video is about before you even click on it. If you watch one and you have further questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to answer those for you there. So that, along with any new customer that I have that reaches out to me, I'm just sending that link over to them, and it's literally your business card at a way higher level, because not everybody can just everybody can just open up an Instagram account, but not everybody can create the content and then build an audience, right?
I look at that and I see that you've got all the content. You're bringing good information to people, not just posting some random stuff. You're doing it at a rate that people actually stay and interact with you, right? So I think that that's just a big advantage in today's market. And I was talking with somebody earlier today, and he does some short form video stuff, and he's trying to get better at it. But what I want people to listen to is Will's found something else besides being a great originator, separating himself from the market. So he can offer this to people to get in front of them and then capture their business. He's got a team behind him that supports him to take care of the loan process. But if Will can use that as in his introduction to get in the door to capture the business, his team does a great job supporting him. And then he comes in behind and buttons it up to make sure everything's smooth. The sky's the limit. I mean, he's not in a massive metropolitan market. He's in Tulsa, Oklahoma, right? So, like, it's not like he's in Atlanta or Chicago or LA, but he's slowly taking over that market, not just by talking about rates and fees. That's not his conversation. Okay. His conversation's growth and helping them become better versions of themselves. So, well, I can't wait to see what happens with your business and then everything else about Will Gomez. I mean, I have a vested interest now because you're a friend. So I want to, I know that I know you're limited on travel now with a baby coming and a broken foot there, but I hope we can connect in person sometime in the near future. Would love to see you, give you a big hug and hear more about what's going on. So if people want to know more about Will Gomez, and they want to just, like the old commercial, be like Mike, be like Will, how do they connect with Will Gomez?
Yeah, so they can find me on Instagram at wgomez28. That's the same thing with on my Facebook. They can just search up William Gomez on there. My handle there, even though it's not really visible, it's wgomez28 as well. wgomez28 on TikTok as well, and we're also on Spotify and YouTube and Apple podcasts for Willpower podcasts there. And I would love to have you on sometime as well too, man. Whether it's through on here, I really love doing mine. One of the things that I know that you went over to Brian's, and you did one with him, but so Brian is actually one of the I think like 2 or 3 people that I've had on Zoom. And I've actually, when I went out there, I don't know if you know Sean Kaplan, he's from his area, and I did one with him in person, because having these conversations like this with people in person are just at a different level. So if we can make it in person, we'll find a way. If not, then I'd love to still have you on. Yeah, man, thank you so much for having me on your show, and can't wait to reconnect with you. Looks like I might be up in your neck of the woods a lot more often with the little one there up at Disney World.
Yeah, well, we'd love to connect with that for sure. So I will have in the show notes, I'm going to have Will send me his links and everything, and I'll have my producer Logan put everything in the show notes, so you'll be able to connect with Will. And dude, thanks again for being on here, man. Love to connect with you. And the microphone worked this time, so I'm feeling really excited.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah. Thank you so much for tuning in to the One Hand at a Time podcast today. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and share. I'm often asked if I'm available for speaking opportunities or accepting new coaching clients. The answer is yes. Feel free to click the Calendly link in the show notes to set up a 30-minute call with myself. And remember, as we move forward in life, we do it one hand at a time.